Let's take the idea of a phone. So now we're having something as powerful as cocaine or alcohol. Would you give your 3-year-old or 4-year-old child alcohol or cocaine? But how many people give them a phone or an iPad to pacify them?
Have you found, and speaking about social media and phones, and you working with a lot of millennials, have you found a major gap in not only attention, but also just overall nervous system activation in the generations?
I'm really concerned about our younger generation today. And I think that with all of the wonderful developments in technology, and I certainly don't want to discount those advances, I think they've come at the expense of younger people today. So we live in an interesting time in the world in that our government systems are run primarily of baby boomers who took advantage of maybe the greatest period of economic growth in the history of the planet. And they're at a decision. And this last issue with the pandemic is a classic example. You had people in the high-risk area working to protect themselves as the older population of the world at the expense of the younger people of the generation. And that has never been the case in human history. You're always trying to look forward to your young. They've profited from technological innovation and the addictive nature of these technologies at the expense of the psychological and emotional health of those individuals. And for these young folks, they've never grown up in an environment like I grew up in. They don't know what it's like not to have a GPS. You know, I had a friend of mine who, he was telling his kid, like, the power went out at their place. And he said to his kids, he's like, the internet was out, and they're like, yeah, this is what it was like when I was a kid, when we didn't have internet. And his kids looked at him and said, Dad, there's always been the internet. Because it always has been there. And so you have that hyperconnectivity on a surface level, but a lack of depth. And when you find the depth of connection, this is what gives value and meaning to one's life. And that's uncomfortable. There's vulnerabilities, there's fail points on yourself. And I think what a lot of very competent young people that come into our business, and I love that, and one of the things I want to create, and we work really hard on doing in our company, is creating a culture where they're seen, they're valued, they're recognized by their peers. They're also able to take ownership for maybe mistakes they made, but they're not taken as a, hey, you're bad. It's like, hey, this is a learning experience. Like, we're invested in you and you're invested in us. And by understanding that, we start to create a safety valve for them where they belong to something. So it becomes a small tribe that they now belong to. And that tribe offers safety, not stress. So it takes them out of that low connection. It's like, hey, you know what? You screwed up this week. What did we learn? Big deal. You made a mistake. So what? You're okay. But the wrong mistake in social media, you're a young kid, you say the wrong thing or whatever, you're canceled and blacklisted, and there's this condemnation that comes on you for the mistakes that you might make, which is ordinary part of, development. That's a huge amount of anxiety. So we have this whole era of virtue signaling to try and make sure that I position myself in a way. And to me, that's just a symptom of a high level of anxiety, of superconnectivity.
Mm-hmm. That's what it is, superconnectivity, no depth. And it's what I find it's become more difficult, even for me, who didn't grow up on internet until like high school, to remember what it's like to have deeper conversations more often, whereas I'm used to very superficial, responding to people, chatting very quickly. And that's been a side effect of what's been happening. So now it's taken more intention to be like, okay, and even having the blessing of the show where I could sit with people and really talk. It's the check-in that I have per week, but if I didn't have it, man, I can't imagine what children today are. They're just hyper-connected. and increases in anxiety, increases in suicidality and suicide, all because when we're developing, we're so sensitive and we're hyper exposed to all of this stimulus, man. And our nervous systems are a mess.
I believe that is absolutely true. So it's an evolutionary shift in humans. And I believe, if you've read the book Homo Deus by Yuval Noah Harari, he talks about, there was at least 5 subspecies before Homo sapien, Cro-Magnon, Homo florentis, a variety of these species. And the adaptability of Homo sapiens allowed us to win out, right? So, for example, there's about 2% of our DNA in the human thing that's still left over from Neanderthals. But now we have 2 divergent aspects that are happening in society, and I like to call it, Homo geneticus and Homo digitalis. Okay, and Homo digitalis is the increasing connectivity. Frankly, we're basically cybernetic organisms now, because if you leave your phone, it feels like you left your child or your body part. So technology has now become almost integrated, and now I think there's legitimately somewhere around 100,000 known cybernetic organisms, people who are fused with machines in their physiology now, and that's going to increase exponentially. Now we also have simultaneously people using CRISPR genes, using RNA, DNA technology to deliver molecules in the body, which are creating mutations within the DNA itself. We don't know what the consequences of that. And we have an increase reliability. So you see guys like Elon Musk that's saying, well, we have a bandwidth problem of input, so we're going to put Neuralink chip in your head. And there's other companies already doing it. There's people that have this inserted so that we are connected to mathematical algorithms which are controlled by AI. Okay, so we've got, which is going down that cybernetic, and then, okay, now I've determined that I'm going to use this predictive models to select genetics for my evolution, and if I don't do this, am I going to be competitive in this world? Right? Am I going to be able to keep with the pace of growth and the speed of transaction, which is becoming increasingly difficult because, processing power doubles every 18 months, and it has since last 60 years or whatever, and it doesn't seem to stop. And then with AI, we have geometric progression that we don't really understand geometric progression. At some point, AI is going to be so infinitely smarter, and the point from when it's not as smart as us to the part where it scales up past us is out of our, we can't conceive of it. So are we going to become the house cat of AI? Are we going to become cybernetic organisms? Because if I'm connected to the internet brain-wise, which is what we're starting to see evolve on kind of like an analog dial-up system on a computer. We're really at that dial-up stage where we're interacting with the device. But now we're going to go to broadband direct connection to AI mathematical algorithms. Well, if I'm that integrated into the program, how much of me is actually left? And then the question is, well, what is me? And if I cut off your arm, are you still you?
Sure.
And if I cut off your leg, are you still you? Right? Okay. So if I cut off those things, but you're still alive, you're still you. Okay, so you're not your body. Okay, so if I ask you the question, well, what's your thoughts? Right? You can see your thoughts. You're probably having thoughts. We have this conversation. Some expressed, some not expressed. So you're observing your thoughts. You're not your thoughts. You might have emotions. Somebody might hear that and say, I don't know, that makes me feel good, or that's threatening. They're constantly monitoring. So people are monitoring their emotions. Okay, well, we've just established 3 direct truths that pretty much everybody can acknowledge. I'm not my body, I'm not my thoughts, and I'm not my feelings. Those are all observable phenomena within the individualized consciousness. So if I'm not all those things, what am I? So now we're into an existential type aspect where traditionally religion tried to address that with all the successes and failures that brought, which emerged science, and science has tried to address that issue, hasn't really worked. Politics have tried to address that issue. And now we have some sort of fusion of all of those paradigms compressing to the individual, trying to figure out all those things simultaneously with the emergence of these two disruptive technologies that we don't know what the outcome is, right? So it is an existential crisis. And I believe that crisis is what's threatening humanity more than anything else.
And it's coming.
It's here.
It's here.
It's here now at this moment. Right now at this moment, artificial intelligence, mathematical algorithms are fueling what you believe is true.
Which is the most powerful thing, right? Because even though we don't have a chip in us yet, we have a phone which is having direct influence in our everyday consciousness. Hey everyone, I want to talk about Birch Living as a partner that we've been working with for quite a while here on Heal Thyself. Now sleep, so important to me. You know it's one of the top pillars for everything, all things health, rejuvenation, restoration, and then having the energy and focus to go about the day. If your sleep is a mess, your day is a mess, which makes your sleep the next night a mess. Anyway, Birch is a premium mattress in the box company, and they make mattresses and sleep products that are stylish, comfortable, and environmentally conscious. Their organic, non-toxic mattresses are made right here in the United States. The Birch Luxe takes comfort, luxury, and safety to the next level. It's crafted with responsibly sourced and sustainably produced materials like organic cashmere, organic New Zealand wool, fair trade cotton, and 100% natural latex. With 8 different layers, the Luxe was specially created with breathability and support in mind. Now, the natural materials allow for increased airflow that keeps you cool and comfortable throughout the night. The natural non-toxic latex relieves pressure points, while the targeted zone lumbar support provides enhanced contouring. The mattress has over 1,000 individually wrapped steel coils to cradle your body and limit any motion transfer going on between you and your partner. The Birch Luxe mattress has several third-party certifications. It's GOTS certified, Green Guard Gold certified, Fair Trade certified, Wool Integrity, NZTM, and Forest Steward Council certified. I've had my Birch Luxe mattress now for 6 months, and I love it. What I love most about it are 2 things. I'm not sweating throughout the night. It's cool, it's breathable, and that motion transfer is reduced, and I feel like I'm being held by the bed, so it's very, very, very comfortable. With your Birch mattress, you get a 100-night sleep trial along with a 25-year warranty. If it makes you nervous to buy something that you have yet to try, you get more than 3 months to make sure you love it. If you don't, they pick it up for you and you get a full refund. The best part about this is that Birch delivers your mattress right to your door for free within the United States. Now, I love my Birch mattress. I really do think you would too. So if you're looking to invest in a new mattress, I want you to go check out Birch and try it out. You can click on the link below or go to birchliving.com/healthyself and you're gonna get $400 off your mattress plus 2 free pillows.
One of my spiritual teachers wrote something 100 years ago, more than 100 years, yes, more than 100 years ago. And he says, your thoughts are not your own. In other words, your environment, the beliefs of that environment, what you are subjected to influences you. And we kind of extract from that environment, and then you compile that data, emotional data, mental data, physical, like all these sort of things, and we come up with our own version, which is a shortcut version to navigate through the world. But now we've expanded that exponentially, and then through mathematical algorithm programming for profitability, then that now starts to being compressed so that you now exist in an echo chamber. And that echo chamber is now causing the oppositional division that we now see. And so you have to ask yourself, if we're seeing this much division in the world, is that a program to somebody's benefit? I would argue that it must be. And somebody or something is creating that for some sort of agenda that you might not be aware of. And only through checking into how you feel determines, you know what? Something doesn't feel right. And that's what people have to trust. And you have to be able to separate from that and come to your own conclusions from within.
Which is so powerful, because when you are tapped into that feeling and your intuition, then you're tapped in. But guess what? When we're on our phones all the time, it's taking us away so much from our intuition, creating so much tension in the body. And it's so true. Like, I can start putting up all of these really hateful posts.
Sure.
Inevitably, I'll lose all my followers, but I'll gain a bunch of followers from that community.
That's right.
Which are going to validate my new experience and perspective of the world. Whereas on the other side, there could be, a whole preaching love and connection and spirituality and whatever it may be, and that's going to be brought. And the division is just, I feel since 2020 that the division has become more palpable. It feels like something's coming to the surface. I feel it in my body, and I would agree with you. It's easy to control a population that is scared and looking for answers. That I know. When we want a savior, we automatically look for the first option of saving us.
Absolutely.
And sometimes it's orchestrated. I get that, man. And I'm glad we got to talk about that at part of the conversation, man. The phone has just been, it's like a love-hate. My work goes through there. But then, if I'm on it too much, the anxiety is real.
Well, we have to call a spade a spade. And the reality is if you look at the biochemical dump that occurs from using your phone, it is the equivalent of alcohol or cocaine from a neurochemical addictive behavior, okay? Now here's the thing. If you study addiction, and I have studied addiction, and I've had a lot of friends that suffered from addiction, and we all have what I would say manageable addictions, and what we call addiction that isn't manageable. You go to therapy or you dysfunction, that becomes an addiction that is not manageable in life, that causes chaos to you or others. Well, let's take the idea of a phone. So now we're having something as powerful as cocaine or alcohol. Would you give your 3-year-old or 4-year-old child alcohol or cocaine? But how many people give them a phone or an iPad to pacify them?
Most.
So now, in the formative years of development, where it's like leaving the liquor cabinet open for the kids to go for it. And I'm not saying that parents are doing anything that they intended to hurt their kids. We just haven't fully grasped. Like, I grew up in the area of the 70s. People smoked on planes. There was ashtrays everywhere. Everybody smoked. It was just normal. And then that became not normal, and then that became not acceptable because we understood the consequences. What we have not fully addressed is the consequences of being continuously connected and giving our most precious resource, our youth, access to these super powerful devices that may have unintended biochemical consequences that we couldn't possibly predict before. Mm-hmm. And to me, it's quite possible that we will get to a time when, just like the big tobacco companies were sued for intentionally creating addictive aspects to their products, they market it to that. I think we could probably enter into a world where digital companies will have to have the same amount of consequence because they have consciously created that addiction in order to create market share.
100%.
Right.
There's, like you said, mathematical algorithms for you to revalidate whatever your perspective is, but also just algorithms, the way you see things, the way you like things. It's sort of like, how do you know that this is a preference, of mine? But it's right here in front of me. And then the color palette there's for me, a super conscious element to those algorithms that I just don't understand because it is tailored after years right to you.
Well, let's just take your phone. And for anyone listening to this, I would encourage them to do this. Take something that they've never heard of or no experience, like very little. You could say whatever, it doesn't matter, like elephants painting. Mm-hmm. And just stay by your phone or stay by your devices or your Apple connected devices or your Amazon speaker and just for a little bit talk about elephants painting. Elephants painting. Did you see the elephant painting? I was looking for an elephant that paints. Boy, that elephant that paints. Do that a bunch of times and watch your feed on your phone over the next 48 to 72 hours and see what happens. I guarantee there's going to be a feed in your YouTube channel that says elephants painting. You're going to see an elephant painting in India or something like that.
Yeah.
And then try it with something else. And try it. Don't just take my word for it. Try it with 3 or 4, 5, 6 things and start seeing that algorithm change.
Mm-hmm.
Well, wait a second. Is this my thoughts? Is this my feeling? And how is that impacting my body? And so we have to take a responsibility to the inputs in our life because that's going to determine our outputs in life.
Mm-hmm. 100%, right? Because if you're coming from a place where you feel in alignment with those thoughts and feelings, you're able to show up very differently in life.
Yeah.
But I love that test, man. You don't know the amount of times where I picked up my phone and I was like, that's weird. How did that
Correct.
happen? Multiple, like many actually.
Yeah.
But you mentioned about getting into your body, your feelings, getting in tune with that intuition. What are some things that we can do, viewers and listeners, if we don't even know how to approach that?
Well, first, I think we have to recognize that we're addicted, that there's a problem. All of us. Like, I'm addicted to sugar because I was given sugar as a kid. Everybody in my generation got addicted to sugar. It's just part and parcel of dealing with that, and all the health consequences of that are recognized. So people have to realize is they're addicted to their technology. Okay? And so going cold turkey on that, though, is not really an option for most people,
mm-hmm.
right? Because it's so integrated into our society. So first you got to put confines on what you do. Like China just start cutting off social media at 10 o'clock at night.
Wow.
They can do that in a dictatorship, but they're starting to recognize that this is destroying the young part of it. I'm not an advocate for the Chinese model of management, mm-hmm. right, of a population or government. Mm-hmm. I'm not a fan. I want to be clear about that. Many of our big tech companies are.
I see.
Okay, so that's an issue. So first we need to curtail the amount of time, and then we need to replace some of that time where we were on our phone with something that's going to reconnect us with awareness in ourselves. Mindfulness, meditation, contemplation, things that involve connection with our partner, with spirituality. So these challenges that we've had have persisted throughout time. Yeah. For thousands of years, right? Since time immemorial. I mean, you read the Vedas and the Upanishads. It's all very clear back then that life is an illusion and it's basically the Matrix. I mean, they're basically talking about the Matrix 10,000 years ago, right? The Bhagavad Gita, these things, and the various religious texts talks about, identifies the enemy as like a Satan or a Lucifer, that which creates an illusion. Mm. And now we are living in a digital illusion of some nature. And so we need to identify and recognize that. And we need to be able to interact with it, almost like Carl Jung talked about dealing with our shadow, not letting our shadow consume us, but have enough humility to recognize the shadow is part of us, okay? And the only way that you're able to clearly see that is to create some sort of mindfulness practice where you're disconnected from those elements so that one can become aware of that which is in herself. And I would recommend that for most people, they're going to need some sort of guidance around that to just break the chain. You know, like if you go to an addiction group, you get a sponsor. There's a set of principles, but you got a sponsor to help you identify that. You need a coach, you need information, you need something like that to manage that mm-hmm. world. I would highly suggest that. Mm-hmm. And that's going to be the start of your journey into yourself. And when you get into your little self, then you can identify with the big self, which is pervasive through anybody.
Yeah, man, I really resonate with that because the phone is the very thing that takes me away from myself. Mm-hmm. It's you don't know how many times I took extra time on my phone or even laptop, And then I was like, oh, I'm tired. I should just like shower, wind down, and go to sleep. And I'm like, oh, but I was supposed to meditate for an hour, you know? And like, it always, it takes precedence, especially the more you're on it. It's cumulative. And I like the part you said about cold turkey, because for most people, we ain't gonna be able to put the phone down and just walk away and go, okay, now I'm ready for a new way of life. It's become so integrated in every single day where, you know, you do that for a day and then you realize how much you needed it for delivering food, doing a transaction online, you know, calling someone up, and then going on Instagram, especially if you work from there. So I have a lot of compassion for people who have that difficulty. But you know what I notice? The limitation, I have a buzzer that goes on my phone that tells me you've been on social media for an hour and a half, 2 hours, just to let you know. And then it's in my head that I should probably push back. And then at the end of the week, I check how much time I've been, or at the end of the day, and then all the way to Sunday, how much time and on average the whole week was. And it's crazy, I try to keep it under 5 hours. 5 hours is still a lot of time, but it used to be up to like 8, 9 hours. So, but what I notice is I'm much more focused, much more, there is usually an internal anxious buzzing that's low grade. And now I just feel kind of like the internal volume has come down just by separating from that. And then sometimes the last thing I do is I keep the red light. You know, I know that you can do red light on the phone, sort of like a blue blocker for the phone. Sometimes I have it during the day even, so my eyes aren't connecting to that blue light all day, or I'll just put the glasses on. But how are ways that you keep your distance or integrate that in a healthy way?
Well, I think I want to be clear, I don't always succeed at that.
Yeah.
Right?
A lot of us
So
don't.
part of when I'm communicating this is I'm not communicating myself as some sort of authority that's figured it out. I'm communicating it as a vulnerability that I struggle with as someone who didn't even grow up in that world, and I don't profess that I have a level of proficiency, and I have even a deeper empathy for those who have grown up into it, right? So I'm sharing something that I just think is obvious for me, and I don't necessarily have the solutions to it.
Mm-hmm.
I think many of us fantasize about just throwing it all away and living on an island, right? And then other members say, you know, I want to just be booted in, right?
Yeah.
Right? And so I can keep going.
Yeah.
And I think if we took a cross section of the population, we'd have some sort of standard distribution between those, with some people truly opting out and some people putting the Neuralink chip in, right? So
somewhere in the middle. Too.
So I can't say that I've figured it all out, nor can I say that this is what my absolute is. I would say that I'm moving in an area to decouple more and more from this, especially now as I get older. You know, your most precious resource is your time. And when you get my age, you start to see life differently, in that you recognize is that, well, you know, time goes by much faster than we think. And sooner or later, you're sitting on the other side of youth. And that creates an instant change of perspective and values. And so in my own life, I like to disconnect from the phone in the evening. When I'm dealing with people, I put my phone, I get my phone away from me. I turn it down. I don't see the text messages.
That's good.
I don't respond quickly to the phone. I see the phone as a connection device when I need it, and I don't do it. And I'm in the process of decoupling more and more and more from it. My most favorite thing to use technology for is to connect with people. Like, I like doing my Zoom calls with my team because they're all over the world. So it's not as good as for in person, but it allows us to deal with that, and I do get that feedback. Just recently with my executive vice president, who I brought in to help me with this, we're steering into more physical meetings where we're in person exchanging. And now I'm starting to move meetings out of the house because I have a live-work studio. It's like, okay, can I go down to Bulletproof and meet you down there?
Yeah.
And by going to that community, I'll go hang out at Bulletproof, and I'll go hang out at Irwan, and I'll start chatting with people. And I make a point of talking to people in the real world, right? Like I sit down in Bulletproof and it's like, hey, how you doing, right? What are you eating? You know, what's that? You know, like, and what's interesting is how much people light up. There is just a response. You see their whole being, because even though they're on their phone connected, they're starving from this frequency exchange you cannot get in a digital world. And it's awesome. And so I'm encouraging more people to spend time doing that. Yeah. And I think we're going to see D-Tech parties. And what I mean is you're going to come into a place and everybody's got to put their phones away. Right? You come in here, phones stay at the door, you pick them up. And I went to neurofeedback training, and at neurofeedback training, go to BioCybernet 40 years in, put the phone away. When you come in the door, you pick it up when you leave. And that sense of presence brings you back to an ancestral state. And you go, wow, man, this is, you go through the FOMO for a day or two, and I can't handle this, and then it's like, oh.
Feels nice, right?
Feels like you feel the energy of the nervous system starting to calm. So self-regulating that is of imperative performance, because there's variance and tolerance.
And I love those recommendations because they're easy, right? How many of us take meetings, or how many of us, you don't have to take a meeting, just be in public. And I agree with you. I've spoke to strangers out of nowhere, and it's like the smile, but like I swear, like they have more color on their face. Their eyes, like kind of, I'm like, whoa, you know, just ask about your food, but let's talk a little bit. And we are starved for that. You can see it's like someone presses like the refresh button, and we're like, yeah, I'm alive now. I'm connecting for real. I love the idea of putting your phone away. I love being hyper present. We had a episode with my friend here, and she said, her name is Blue, and she goes, one of the best gifts you can give someone is full attention.
Correct.
Full presence, right? So part of it is like, where's my phone? Can I put it away? And let's really be here together in this conversation. I love that. So any exciting projects you have coming up for yourself? I know that you're a busy guy. Took a while to get you here.
Yeah, we're neighbors, basically.
And we're neighbors. But and I'm going to come for a workout too.
Beautiful.
But any exciting projects you have coming down the pipeline for yourself?
Well, we got a couple things that's, I think, fun and exciting. We're one of the few supplement companies that has a relationship with a university. So Birch International University, we have, I think now 13 people working for us on staff over there who are developing a vast array of research experiments to increase the efficacy of our products. So for example, you can add certain vitamins and minerals to bacteria cultures, and they'll produce different neurotransmitters and antioxidants and all these things. And so you can actually feed these organisms and change their profile. You get them to colonize better. There's all kinds of things that you can do. So we believe, and our head researcher is a PhD in microbiome technology, that we're heading into the post-antibiotic age within the next 10 to 20 years. And what that means is we're so dependent on antibiotics for surgery, and we forget what it was like before. Go read some books about what life was like without penicillin and these things. Well, now that's increased exponentially. So we're on the cutting edge of developing a probiotic technology that will replace the kind of dirty bombs of antibiotics. So it's kind of, antibiotics to me is a dirty technology that, you know, you drop a bomb in a place and you destroy everything, and we live in a symbiotic relationship with these organisms. And so we need to recultivate awareness about that and help support those organisms so that we can support ourselves. That's one project which is ongoing, and that's exciting. We have a sub-brand called Newtopia, which has been growing exponentially, and you know it's a constant battle to meet up with demands. It's the first mass-marketed, customized nootropic system. In other words, we identify what your neurochemical dominance is, what you may be depleted in, and what you may be deficient in, and have an array of offerings that you customize on a month-to-month basis to meet your cognitive needs, whether you want to have social fluency, whether you want to have deep focus, whether you want to have lucid kind of flow states or some combination of that, we're able to actually provide the array of neurochemicals which you might be depleted or deficient in to expand your capabilities and awareness. That's really exciting. That's been a really fun project for us, and I'm super pumped about what that's doing for people. And people who struggled with focus can now stay focused for hours. People who didn't have an array of certain feelings or emotions now have access to those in a new way. That's really, really fun. My business partner is someone who's struggled with sleep, and we're coming out with a sleep system, which again is customizable based on your individual chemistry. So it's not one product. It's actually a combination that we teach people exactly how to regulate for themselves to improve their sleep. That's a fun project that we're involved. We've got the Bio Tribe, which was an extension of our customer service. So one of the things when you talk about tribe is one of the demands that our customers had is they wanted an increased connectivity with Matt and myself and the company to answer a wide array of questions that weren't really related to our products. And when I originally started out this company back in 2004, that was in the days of boards. And I used to spend 4 hours on the boards answering questions. In fact, one of my best friends lives down in Orange County. He was one of the original guys on the boards that we met through the internet and developed a friendship. And so it seems like this whole tribal community, we just started this recently, and we got like 1,500 people or something in this thing. And the quality of the communication is in there, and there's a lot of really smart people who are directly answering questions for people. So now there's a community emerging. Cool. So that's really neat. Really excited about that project. We're now moving into retail. I'm going to the Anaheim show here coming up in a couple weeks.
Yeah, I'll be there too.
We haven't really done, retail has been sort of a side, like it just happens organically, but we're putting directives on that. And those are some of the products the projects I can discuss.
I love that.
And then we've got a book coming out next year.
Cool.
And the goal of the book is to eliminate. It's essentially the grand universal theory of diet that will eliminate the dietary tribalism that we see there. Like Matt's a ketogenic, my business partner's a ketogenic guy, I'm a plant guy. And you go, how do you guys run a company together? It's because we don't see ourselves as adversaries. We find the common elements of us and the individualization. And I think that's where, if we get this technology thing right, we'll be able to see that there's more things that makes us common. And the variance that's different is not something to fear or to condemn. It's a thing to experience and enjoy. And that's the big opportunity that hopefully humanity can make the leap for.
Ooh, I'm hoping for that, man.
I'm hoping for that too.
I love that. You have tons of projects. It sounds like some top secret ones we can't know about yet.
Yeah, that's right.
But I'm excited for it. I really enjoyed our conversation, especially because it's so relevant. And I myself am on my phone, people are on their phone, even touching on the importance of community as a really, really big aspect, even tying it with the phone. It was just very nourishing for me, and I know the listeners, about how we can get back to ourselves, because really that's what life is about, is coming back to yourself, getting back in your body and showing up from that place without all those distractions. So I feel very inspired after our convo, man.
One more thing I forgot to mention.
What's up?
I can't believe I forgot to mention, because we're talking about physical community. So I'm starting Wake Up Los Angeles in association with a Wake Up group. There's one in Inland Empire, there's one in Orange County, I think there's another one starting in San Diego. And so our goal is to create a physical environment. We just had one on Wednesday night down in OC. It was great. There's probably about 150 people there who are into this space and to producing health and vitality. And there was companies there and people in there and speakers. And just getting around and pressing the flesh and having conversations with real people in the real world. And you walk into that place and something happens and you remember what it's like to be a human. So we're going to be doing Wake Up Los Angeles here, and I'd love to have you over to
I'll
that
be there,
event.
man.
It'd be really fun.
I'll be there.
Yeah, so I'll give you the deets. You can come over for our preliminary hangout, which is going to be right next door to you, so it's easy to get to. And then we plan on expanding that in a really big way here in Los Angeles, because I think in bigger cities, the need to bring tight communities together are really important, so people don't fall into the traps of, self-destruction.
For sure, which is the most empowering approach and message out there for all of us. Thank you, man, for coming on the show. It's an honor to be working with BiOptimizers for so long, and you guys are top tier, man.
Thank you.
For all the people who are listening, not viewing, I did the thumbs up and the A-OK. I feel good about it, man. Love to have you back on, but in the meantime, just keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you, sir.
All right, Lightheart, everyone.